Okay, so I know there's been a lot of videos made about Mario Kart World, like a lot, but honestly, I just need to make one too because I can't stop thinking about it. This is quite possibly one of the strangest and most interesting video games that I've played in a long time. It is a game that is on the surface perfectly made, but has so many little choices working against it, slowly dragging it down into the pits of internet negativity. Part of me wishes that the game was just worse. It would be so easy if I could sit here and say Mario Kart World is terrible and move on with my life. But instead, I'm stuck here wondering about what could have been, and really, what should have been. I think I first want to acknowledge that Mario Kart World was always going to have an uphill battle. Following its predecessor was a very difficult task. In my opinion, Mario Kart 8 is the perfect kart racer, and the best Mario Kart game by far. Don't get me wrong, the older games are all great, and each have something distinct I love about them. But Mario Kart 8 is just so expertly made, and this only became more true once Mario Kart 8 Deluxe came around and fixed the problems of the original, such as battle mode. It is everything I could have ever asked for from a Mario Kart game, and while we all have our own personal series favorites, I think most fans would agree with that statement. It's no surprise then that the game reached sales numbers that not even Nintendo could have dreamed of, becoming a top 5 best-selling video game of all time. By the way, I just wanted to say, I love that Wikipedia combines Mario Kart 8 and Mario Kart 8 Deluxe sales, because this somehow allows a Wii U game to be prominently featured among the most successful video games ever made. Anyways, if Mario Kart 8 Deluxe stopped right there, I would have already said it would be extremely hard to ever top. But as I'm sure you all know, Nintendo would go on to release the Booster Course DLC, doubling the amount of tracks available. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe was not only the best Mario Kart to play, but it now also had the most content the series had ever seen by a large margin. And with 70 million copies sold, there were a whole lot of satisfied customers who probably would have been happy playing this game forever. There was always a lot of natural pressure riding on a sequel that follows a game this highly beloved. But when you add in literally 10 years of content updates and sales this strong, it seemed almost impossible that Mario Kart's next game could come anywhere close. Because of this, the next entry in the series could not just be more Mario Kart, because even if you made the best game ever, it's going to seem lacking in comparison simply due to the amount of content alone. And not only that, but you're going to need to convince the tens of millions of people who bought Mario Kart 8 Deluxe that this new game is worth the upgrade, especially since the Switch 2 is backwards compatible. Try to keep this central idea in mind as we continue. Back in April, I had the opportunity to play Mario Kart World for the first time at the Switch 2 experience, and all the way back then, I predicted that this game would be controversial, although it has not exactly been for the reasons I expected. I anticipated that the initial reception may be mixed as people adjust to the changes after playing Mario Kart 8 for a decade straight, and while that adjustment will be difficult at first, it would be worth it in the long run. A game just like Mario Kart 8 may feel comforting in the moment, but it would get stale so quickly. Ironically though, it seems like the opposite ended up happening. The initial reception was actually pretty positive, and it's only within the last few weeks that the conversation has become nothing but doom and gloom. Admittedly, I can feel myself getting less and less interested in playing it as time goes on as well. It's left me spending a lot of time thinking about why exactly this is happening, because upon release, I loved this game. It felt like Mario Kart had leveled up with a truly next-generation package worthy of headlining a new console. And what excited me the most was that I felt like we were just scratching the surface early on. Between the different items, jump abilities, wall riding, and grinding, there were so many possibilities yet to be found. I couldn't wait to see how the game would evolve, what secrets would be discovered next, and how insane online races could get. However, as time has progressed, it feels like none of that really ended up happening. People were finding awesome stuff, but it all had to take place in time trials due to one head-scratching decision. One of the defining features of Mario Kart World is that it fittingly is all one interconnected world. The tracks are all connected to one another, allowing for a seamless transition to each when driving around the open world. This also works incredibly well for the new Knockout Tour mode, a battle royale style race that takes you through several travel courses totally uninterrupted. These sections in between courses have become known as intermissions, which are largely wide open roads with not much going on. I don't mind these in free roam or knockout tour. In fact, I would say they are vital to the experience. It wouldn't make any sense without them. But the big mistake was making them a part of Grand Prix and standard online races as well. You end up spending half of the race driving to the course you are supposed to be on instead of actually experiencing the track. Then you still get kicked back to the pre-game lobby between races, so you aren't even feeling the benefits of the intermissions in the first place. And at launch, you would almost never actually get to race on a normal 3-lap track. This is such an incredible disservice to the game that I can't even believe they let it go through. Mario Kart World has some of the best tracks in the series in my opinion. There are some iconic classics back for the first time like Wario Stadium. Courses like Great Question Mark Block Ruins have some of the most fun skips and tricks I've ever seen in a Mario Kart game. And many of the tracks are visually stunning, such as Starview Peak and Rainbow Road. But if you play online, you would never know it because half of your time is spent on these barren highways. The most egregious example I've found came from Koopa Troopa Beach. This is the shortest track in the game, a kind of baby park-esque course where you're supposed to get around the loops very quickly. Despite this, there was an intermission before. So what you end up with is a race where you spend a minute and a half driving to Koopa Troopa Beach just to do one loop around it that, no exaggeration, took less than 30 seconds. At that point, it's not even a preference thing. It just makes no logical sense. Eventually, players realized if they voted for a random track, it guaranteed a 3-lap race since it wouldn't be connected to whatever course was played previously. This meant most lobbies were now full of players only voting random every single time. But when Nintendo caught on to this, they pushed out an update that made it so the intermission courses still showed up when choosing random. And this right here was the pivotal turning point for Mario Kart World. This was the moment when it became clear that intermissions in online play wasn't some oversight. This was how Nintendo wanted us to play the game. And for the life of me, I cannot figure out why. Why spend all this time designing these fantastic courses, creating a whole new movement system to allow for crazy tech, and then make us drive in a straight line? In many ways, Mario Kart World feels like a game that was made by two completely different teams. One group was trying to make an open world game with vast areas to drive on and explore. They wanted you to take in the scenery, find secrets, cruise around with friends, and really feel like you were in a living world. Meanwhile, the other group was developing classic Mario Kart courses with intricate new mechanics like grinding, wall riding, and charge jumps. Their focus was on technicality and high-speed precision. And then it seems that at some point throughout development, these two groups suddenly had to come back together and combine what they had made. And that's precisely why you get this strange mismatch that isn't working for a lot of players. I totally understand that the overarching world and interconnected levels was the key feature of this entry. And I also understand that Nintendo wants you to experience this aspect and not ignore it by just playing normal races all the time. But we were already getting intermissions through not only free roam, but also knockout tour. Why should those who want to play normal races not also be catered to? I think it does go back to what I was saying about Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. They knew this game needed to be different, and they were absolutely right. But what they missed was that it already was different. 24 racers instead of 12, new movement mechanics, never before playable characters, and brand new game modes like free roam and knockout tour was enough. But making it so online play can't be experienced the way people want, it was just an unfortunate step too far. Now, Nintendo has recently started giving in to what fans have been begging for. They have slightly increased the likelihood of 3-lap races appearing in online play with a few different updates. In fact, literally as I was writing this video, a new update came out which seems to have upped the probability pretty significantly. But it almost feels like it's too late. Nintendo's initial stubbornness totally halted this game's momentum. A lot of people dropped it and aren't going to be keeping up with it anymore to realize a random update may have fixed their biggest issue. And if there's one thing I've learned about the gaming community, it's that they sure do have strong memories. Mario Kart World will always be known as the $80 video game where you drive in a straight line on an open highway. It will always be remembered as the game that got absolutely torched by Sega's marketing team in the trailer for Sonic Racing Cross Worlds. So while I don't agree with the people calling the game dead or terrible, it's definitely a very rough spot to be in. And that's why I said in the title that Mario Kart World makes me sad. You had a nearly flawless racing game totally ruined by one bad decision, and the refusal to give in to what the community wanted quicker. I don't doubt that Nintendo will continue updating the game as time goes on, not only with quality of life fixes, but also with loads of new content that will help it catch 8 Deluxe. I fully expect that history will be very kind to this game, and in a few years, we'll be talking about how it's the best Mario Kart ever. But as things stand right now, the game is kind of seen as a joke, and what a totally avoidable shame that is. Nintendo has always been a bit of a strange company. They often make decisions that seem to go against their best interests. At times, it almost feels like they purposefully do the opposite of whatever their audience is asking for. They rarely take the easy wins and tend to complicate what appear to be obvious solutions. I think no game represents this better than Mario Kart World. As I've tried to express throughout this video, I genuinely think Mario Kart World is the best made Mario Kart ever from a mechanical standpoint, and I don't think it's particularly close either. The potential tricks and skips are unlike anything I've ever seen before, but no one is experiencing it for what it is because of the way they've designed course intermissions and online play. It has to be one of the biggest fumblings I've seen in a long time, and it's actually wild how this one decision totally altered the entire package. That's why I cannot sit here and honestly say Mario Kart World is a bad game like so many have, but I would also be lying if I said I felt much desire to play it in its current state, and that is so incredibly depressing. There is a great Mario Kart game hiding under the surface here. Perhaps even the pinnacle of the series. But unless Nintendo makes some big changes fast, it will probably always be known more for its price point and open roads. What a waste of such a masterfully crafted video game that would be. The good news though is that this is a pretty easy fix, honestly. Let the intermissions exist in Knockout Tour and Free Roam where they actually make sense and are engaging. Then let standard online racing be standard online racing, and stop fighting against what your community clearly wants. Once you add on to that the inevitable upcoming content like new courses, playable characters, and hopefully a 200cc mode, this game would basically be perfect overnight. I just hope Nintendo isn't too proud to make the necessary changes before it's too late.